If you have $500,000 saved for retirement, the math says you can safely spend about $1,667 per month. That's it. Not $5,000, not $3,000, just $1,667 a month. And before you panic and start wondering if you'll be eating instant noodles for the rest of your life, wait, because that number is both completely true and completely misleading at the same time. In reality, that same $500,000 could give you a comfortable retirement, relaxing on a beach in Florida, or it could leave you struggling to pay rent in a tiny apartment. The difference isn't luck. It comes down to five critical factors that most people never think about when planning retirement. And once you understand them, you'll see why some people retire happily on $500,000 while others struggle even with $2 million. Let's break it down. Part 1. The $500,000 reality most people never want to hear. Let's start with a number that might make your stomach drop. If you have $500,000 saved for retirement, the math says that money gives you about $1,667 per month to live on. That's it. Not $5,000, not $3,000, just $1,667 per month. And before you panic, close this video and stare at your 401k statement, wondering what went wrong. Pause for a second, because what I just told you is both completely true and potentially completely misleading at the exact same time. Whether $500,000 gives you a comfortable retirement or a financial nightmare depends on five critical factors that almost nobody talks about when they discuss retirement numbers. And those five factors can completely transform your financial future. Think about it like this. The exact same $500,000 retirement portfolio could mean relaxing on a beach in Florida with a margarita in your hand, traveling, dining out, and enjoying your freedom. Or it could mean living in a tiny apartment, eating instant noodles, and wondering why you ever left your job in the first place. Same savings, completely different life. And the difference between those two outcomes is not luck. It comes down to understanding how retirement actually works. So let's begin with the foundation. Because before we talk about lifestyle, location, or strategy, we need to understand the basic math behind $500,000 in retirement savings. The basic math of $500,000. There's a concept in retirement planning known as the 4% rule. It was developed by financial planner William Bengen in 1994, and it quickly became one of the most widely used retirement guidelines in the world. The idea is surprisingly simple. In your first year of retirement, you withdraw 4% of your total portfolio. Then every year after that, you increase that withdrawal slightly to keep up with inflation. Bengen tested this strategy using historical U.S. market data, examining dozens of rolling time periods. These periods included some of the most brutal economic conditions in modern history. The Great Depression, high inflation periods, major stock market crashes, the 2008 financial crisis. His conclusion was that under those historical conditions, withdrawing 4% per year allowed a portfolio to last at least 30 years in most scenarios. It's not a guarantee, but historically, it worked more often than not. So let's apply that rule to your $500,000 retirement savings. 4% of $500,000 equals $20,000 per year. Divide that by 12 months, and you get roughly $1,667 per month. That's the number we started with. In theory, that's your retirement paycheck. But here's the problem. In today's economy, $1,667 per month barely covers basic living expenses in many parts of the United States, which is exactly why those five critical factors I mentioned earlier matter so much. Because once you understand those five variables, that same $500,000 can look either terrifying or surprisingly workable. And the first factor that changes everything is something most people completely underestimate. Your Social Security benefit. Part 2. The factor that changes everything. Social Security. When most people think about retirement savings, they focus on one number. their 401k balance, or their IRA. But what many people forget is that retirement income usually comes from two sources: your investments and Social Security. And Social Security isn't one fixed number, it's a range, a huge range. Where you fall in that range can completely change what retirement looks like for you. Let me show you three very real examples. All three people have the same $500,000 retirement portfolio, but their lives look completely different. Example 1. Low earner. Larry spent most of his career working retail and service jobs. His average income over his lifetime was around $30,000 per year. Because Social Security benefits are based on your lifetime earnings, Larry receives about $1,400 per month at age 67. Now remember the $1,667 monthly withdrawal from his $500,000 portfolio. Add those together. Larry's total retirement income becomes $3,067 per month, or about $36,804 per year. It's not luxurious, but depending on where he lives, it might be manageable. Example 2. Average earner. Amy had what many people would consider a typical middle-class career. Her average income was about $60,000 per year. That puts her Social Security benefit very close to the national average, around $1,907 per month. When you add Amy's Social Security benefit to her $1,667 investment withdrawal, her total monthly income becomes $3,574 per month. That's about $42,888 per year. Now we're starting to talk about a different retirement lifestyle. Still modest, but far more comfortable. Example 3. High earner. Henry. Then there's Henry. Henry worked as a software engineer. Throughout most of his career, he earned over $100,000 per year and consistently paid the maximum Social Security tax. That gives him a Social Security benefit of roughly $3,200 per month. Add that to his $1,667 withdrawal, and Henry's retirement income becomes $4,867 per month, or about $58,404 per year. Let's pause for a second and look at what just happened. Three people, same retirement savings, same $500,000 portfolio, but their yearly retirement income differs by over $22,000. That difference alone could mean a new car every year, 3 international vacations, or covering all healthcare costs comfortably, all because of one variable: Social Security, the 5-minute check that changes everything. Here's something surprising: most Americans don't even know what their Social Security benefit will be. But finding out takes less than 5 minutes. You can go to ssa.gov, create an account, and instantly see your projected benefit. You'll see what you would receive if you start collecting at age 62, full retirement age, age 70. And trust me, this one number can completely change how you think about retirement. But even Social Security isn't the biggest factor, because there's something even more powerful that determines whether $500,000 feels like freedom or financial stress. And that factor is something we deal with every single day: where you live. Part 3. Why location can make $500,000 feel like $2 million, or like nothing. After Social Security, there's one factor that has an even bigger impact on whether $500,000 is enough for retirement: your location. Where you choose to live might be the single biggest financial decision of your entire retirement, because the same income can create two completely different lifestyles depending on the cost of living. Let me show you what I mean. Susan, retiring in New York City. Meet Susan. Susan decides she wants to stay in New York City after retirement so she can be close to her daughter. It's a beautiful reason. Family matters. But here's what her monthly finances actually look like. Susan has the same retirement income as Amy from earlier: $3,574 per month. Now, let's look at her expenses. Her one-bedroom apartment in Queens costs about $2,400 per month. Utilities add another $150. Groceries in New York average about $400. Her MetroCard costs $132 per month. And her healthcare supplement before Medicare runs about $300. Before Susan has spent a single dollar on entertainment, clothing, phone service, or internet, she has already spent $3,382 per month. That leaves her with only $192 for everything else. A dental emergency? She has to dip into her retirement savings. An air conditioner repair during a hot summer? She's suddenly cutting back on groceries for the next 2 months. Susan isn't enjoying retirement. Susan is stressed. Karen, retiring in Tennessee. Now meet Karen. Karen has the exact same income as Susan, $3,574 per month. But Karen decides to move to Knoxville, Tennessee. Her financial life looks completely different. Karen rents a comfortable 2-bedroom apartment for $1,100 per month. Utilities are about $120. Groceries cost around $350. Her transportation expenses, including car payment, insurance, and gas, come to about $450 per month. Healthcare supplement costs roughly $250. Add everything together and Karen's monthly expenses are about $2,270. That leaves Karen with $1,304 every month. Money she can use for dining out, traveling, hobbies, saving for future expenses, spoiling her grandchildren. Karen is enjoying retirement. Karen is living her life. The difference between New York and Tennessee? About $13,000 per year. Over a 30-year retirement, that difference becomes almost $400,000. Nearly the size of their entire original retirement savings. Robert, retiring abroad. But the cost difference doesn't stop there. Meet Robert. Robert decided to retire in Merida, Mexico. His lifestyle might surprise you. His 2-bedroom house with a yard costs $600 per month. Utilities average $80. Groceries cost about $300. Transportation is roughly $100 per month. Private health insurance costs $200, and he still spends another $300 eating out regularly. His total monthly expenses? Just $1,580. With the same retirement income of $3,574, Robert has almost $2,000 of extra spending money every month. He travels to the beach on weekends, eats at restaurants multiple times per week, and still manages to save money during retirement. The trade-off most people ignore. Now, this isn't about telling you to move to Mexico. Maybe you love your city. Maybe your family lives nearby, and those things matter. But you need to understand the trade-off. Every extra dollar spent on a higher cost of living is a dollar you can't spend on travel, experiences, hobbies, or simply enjoying your retirement. And there's another expense category that can completely destroy even the best retirement plan. One that many people severely underestimate. Healthcare, Part 4. The healthcare cost that quietly destroys retirement plans. There's one expense that quietly destroys more retirement plans than almost anything else. Not housing, not travel, not even inflation. It's healthcare. And the reason healthcare becomes such a problem in retirement isn't because people ignore it, it's because most people underestimate it by a lot. Let's start with one of the biggest mistakes retirees make. Retiring too early. The cost of retiring before Medicare. If you retire at age 60, you face a 5-year gap before Medicare begins at 65. During those 5 years, you're responsible for buying private health insurance. And the numbers are not small. In 2025, the average premium for a 60-year-old is around $950 per month. That alone is $11,400 per year. But insurance premiums are only part of the cost. You'll also face an annual deductible, which averages about $7,000 per year. Put those two numbers together, And in the first year of retirement, you could easily spend $18,400 on healthcare alone. Think about that for a second. Your $500,000 portfolio withdrawal under the 4% rule is $20,000 per year. That means healthcare alone could consume almost your entire investment income. And if you retire 5 years before Medicare, you could spend over $90,000 on healthcare before you even reach age 65. What happens when Medicare starts now? Let's say you wait until 65 when Medicare begins. Things get better, but healthcare still isn't free. Medicare Part B costs around $185 per month. Prescription coverage under Part D averages about $50 per month. Most retirees also choose either a Medigap supplement plan or a Medicare Advantage plan. Those typically cost about $200 per month. And because Medicare does not cover dental or vision, many retirees spend another $100 per month on those services. Add everything together and you get roughly $535 per month, or about $6,420 per year. Compared to $18,400, that's a huge improvement, but it's still a significant portion of a retirement budget. The $315,000 number most people never plan for. Here's where things get really serious. According to Fidelity's latest research, the average couple retiring at 65 will need about $315,000 for healthcare during retirement, and that number is separate from everyday living expenses. Think about what that means. If you retire with $500,000 total savings and healthcare over time consumes $315,000, then in practical terms, you only have about $185,000 left for everything else over the next 30 years. Housing, food, transportation, entertainment, travel, everything. This is why retiring at 65 instead of 60 can dramatically improve your financial outlook. Those extra 5 years allow you to avoid over $90,000 in early healthcare costs. Let your investments continue growing. Increase your Social Security benefit by waiting. And reduce the total number of years your savings must support you. In other words, those 5 years can completely reshape your retirement. But even if you control healthcare costs, there's another silent force that keeps pushing expenses higher every single year. A force that slowly erodes purchasing power. Inflation. Part 5. The silent force that slowly destroys retirement. Inflation. Even if you manage your Social Security well, choose the right place to live, and plan for healthcare costs. There's still one force quietly working against you every single year. Inflation. Inflation is the reason retirement planning is so complicated. Because while your savings stay fixed, your expenses never do. They keep rising, year after year, slowly, quietly, but relentlessly. Let's look at what that actually means with real numbers. What inflation does to your retirement budget. Earlier, we talked about Amy's retirement income. Her total monthly income was about $3,574 per month. Right now, that might feel manageable, but assume a modest 3% average inflation rate. Here's what happens. In 10 years, Amy would need about $4,800 per month just to buy the exact same thing she buys today. In 20 years, that number jumps to roughly $6,454 per month. And in 30 years, she would need nearly $8,677 per month to maintain the same lifestyle. Nothing about her life changed. She's buying the same groceries, living in the same home, driving the same car, but everything simply costs more. The everyday example. Everyone understands. Think about groceries. Today, your grocery bill might be around $400 per month. In 20 years with normal inflation, that same grocery basket could cost around $722 per month. Or consider rent. A $1,100 apartment today could easily become $1,988 per month in 20 years. Inflation doesn't hit you all at once. It slowly chips away at your purchasing power until one day you realize your money just doesn't stretch the way it used to. And this is exactly why one of the most common retirement strategies is actually one of the most dangerous. Keeping all your money in a savings account. Why playing it safe can be dangerous. Many retirees feel safer keeping their entire nest egg in savings accounts or low-yield bonds. After all, the stock market feels risky. But here's the reality. If your savings account earns 1% interest, while inflation runs at 3%, your purchasing power is actually shrinking by 2% every year. You might feel safe, but financially, you're slowly going backwards. That's why most financial advisors recommend maintaining a balanced investment strategy even after retirement. A typical starting allocation looks something like this: 60% in stocks for growth, 35% in bonds for stability, 5% in cash for emergencies. As retirees age, they usually shift gradually toward more bonds and less stock exposure. But growth remains essential. The long-term math of growth. Looking at historical U.S. market data from 1926 to 2023, stocks have averaged roughly 10% annual returns. Bonds have averaged around 5%. Inflation averaged about 3%. If your portfolio earns 5% while inflation is 3%, your real purchasing power grows only about 2% per year. But if your portfolio earns closer to 7%, while inflation is 3%, you gain roughly 4% in real terms. That difference might sound small, but over 30 years it becomes enormous. A portfolio earning 2% real growth could turn $500,000 into about $900,000. But a portfolio earning 4% real growth could grow to nearly $1.6 million. Same starting money, completely different outcome. The risk nobody likes to talk about. However, there is one risk that comes with staying invested, and it has a complicated name: sequence of returns risk. It simply means this: if you retire right before a major market crash and begin withdrawing money while stocks are falling, you can permanently damage your portfolio's ability to recover. Imagine retiring in 2008, right before the financial crisis. If you're forced to sell stocks during a downturn to pay your bills, you lock in those losses. And your portfolio has much less capital left to participate in the recovery. So how do retirees solve this problem? With a strategy that's surprisingly simple, but incredibly effective. The bucket strategy. Many retirement planners recommend something called the bucket strategy. The idea is straightforward. You keep about 2 to 3 years of living expenses in very safe assets like cash or short-term bonds. If your annual expenses are around $43,000, that means keeping roughly $85,000 in your safety bucket. If the market crashes, you simply withdraw from that safe bucket instead of selling stocks. Meanwhile, the rest of your portfolio, at about $415,000, remains invested for long-term growth. When markets recover, you refill the cash bucket. It's not flashy, it's not exciting, but historically, it has worked remarkably well. And yet, even with the perfect investment strategy, there's still one factor that can destroy everything overnight. One factor that can turn a comfortable retirement into a financial disaster: debt. Part 6. The final factor that can make or break your retirement. Debt. Even if you manage your Social Security well, even if you choose the right location, even if you prepare for healthcare costs and inflation, there is still one factor that can completely destroy a retirement plan: debt. Debt is the difference between feeling financially secure in retirement and constantly worrying about whether your money will last. Let me show you exactly what I mean. Imagine two people. Both have $500,000 saved for retirement. Same savings, same Social Security income, but their lives look completely different. Debt-free Diana first. Meet debt-free Diana. Diana made it a priority to enter retirement without any major debt. She owns her home outright, no mortgage, no car loan, no credit card balances. Her total monthly living expenses come to about $2,800. Meanwhile, her retirement income, including Social Security and portfolio withdrawals, is around $3,574 per month. That means Diana has $774 left over every month, or about $9,300 per year. She uses that extra money to build an emergency fund, take vacations, visit family, and most importantly, sleep peacefully at night knowing her finances are stable. Diana isn't rich, but she's comfortable. Debt burden. Dan, now meet debt burden Dan. Dan also retired with $500,000 saved, but Dan still carries several debts. He owes $180,000 on his mortgage, costing him $1,400 per month. He has a car payment of $350 and about $200 per month in credit card payments. On top of that, he still has the same $2,800 in normal living expenses as Diana. That brings Dan's total monthly expenses to $4,750. But remember, his retirement income is still only $3,574 per month. That leaves Dan with a deficit of $1,176 every single month, or roughly $14,112 per year. To survive, Dan has to pull extra money out of his retirement savings. And if he continues at that rate, his $500,000 portfolio will be completely gone in about 17 years. By the time Dan reaches his early 80s, his retirement savings could be gone, leaving him with only Social Security to live on. Meanwhile, Diana's savings are still growing. Same starting money, completely different future. Should you pay off your mortgage before retiring? One of the biggest debates in retirement planning is whether you should pay off your mortgage before leaving the workforce. Mathematically, some people argue that keeping a low-interest mortgage and investing your money could produce higher returns. For example, if your mortgage rate is under 4%, investing might earn more over time. But there's another factor that doesn't show up in spreadsheets: peace of mind. When you retire without a mortgage, something powerful happens. Your required income drops dramatically, which means you withdraw less from your investments, your portfolio lasts longer, and financial stress decreases. And if something unexpected happens, a market crash, a health emergency, or a recession, you're not worrying about losing your home. For many retirees, that security is worth far more than squeezing out a few extra percentage points of return. So, can you retire on $500,000? After everything we've discussed, the real answer becomes clear. Yes, but only under the right conditions. If you are debt-free, strategic about where you live, able to manage healthcare costs, receiving a reasonable Social Security benefit, and investing wisely to combat inflation, then retiring on $500,000 can absolutely work. But if you are carrying significant debt, locked into a high-cost city, retiring before Medicare, or receiving low Social Security benefits, then $500,000 might not be enough without major lifestyle adjustments. The surprising reality of retirement savings. Here's something important to remember. According to recent data, the median retirement savings for Americans aged 65 to 74 is about $200,000. If you've saved $500,000, you are already ahead of roughly 60% of Americans. That's a major accomplishment. But retirement success isn't determined by a single number in your 401k. It's determined by the decisions you make around that number. Your lifestyle, your spending, your planning, your strategy. Someone out there is living a dream retirement with $500,000, and someone else with $2 million is stressed and unhappy because they never built a proper plan. Because in the end, money is just a tool. Your plan is everything. Final thought. Retirement isn't about having the most money. It's about having enough money to live the life you actually want. If this video helped you understand your retirement reality, make sure to like the video. And if you're planning your own retirement right now, drop a comment and tell me which of these 5 factors you're focusing on first. Because the sooner you optimize them, the closer you get to the retirement you deserve. Thanks for watching.